But if I'm being honest, the majority of the time I'm sitting at the 0 on the scale. At the end of each year, I try to list 5 lessons I've learned, and I try and make them legitimate lessons, not just a list of 5 quotes I heard. I also try to make them sort of big lessons that I learned, not small things. Well, a small thing would be, don't put your hand in a hot air fryer, for example. So I take hundreds of notes each year around a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean I got real world value from those things, because anyone can read an article or watch a video on how to become a better listener or the importance of drinking 3 litres of water every day. But just because you've read or watched something doesn't mean you've learned it, and you need to put in real world effort. And so that's the kind of lessons that I try to write down at the end of each year. So here's 5 lessons I've recently learned through real world experience. So lesson 1, I changed my hairstyle last year and it taught me 2 things. So I used to have the classic Bieber haircut or Beatles haircut, and it was pretty extreme when I was younger, and over the years it kind of slowly got better, but I've basically always had this fringe and I've wanted to change it for a while, and I've put it off for some reason. And after years of wanting to change it, I finally built up the courage to change it, and yeah, it taught me 2 things. 1, I should have done it sooner, I just prefer it this way. And 2, personal changes like a hairstyle change or a career change aren't as big of a deal to others as you assume. People adapt very quickly to change, and whether it's a career or starting something new or a hairstyle, those things become normal pretty quickly. So yeah, I'd built up these ideas that changing my hairstyle would be this big thing and it would take people months to adapt to my new look. But I couldn't be more wrong, because in reality what happened was I got a few nice comments and that was it. My new style was normalised within 5 days. So yeah, if there's something you're wanting to change in your life right now and you're maybe putting it off because you're scared of what you believe others will think, just do it, because your life changes aren't as big of a deal to others as we assume. Lesson 2, I learned that my self-awareness isn't as good as I thought it was, especially when it comes to social situations. I've known I've had some sort of social anxiety for years, but I never really knew how much it affected my awareness until recently. I feel like in general, my awareness is pretty decent. When I'm feeling rubbish or when I'm about to get angry, I can tend to catch myself in those moments. But all that self-awareness completely disappears as soon as something social is involved. And that self-awareness turns into me being self-conscious. Now that might not seem like a lesson, but for me it is, and now I just feel like I'm more aware in social situations, whereas beforehand I almost had 0 awareness. So I tried journaling analog this year, and it taught me a few things. First, you shouldn't put off doing something or trying something when you're scared about what others may think. And the second thing is, the more you try to hide something, the more of a big deal it becomes. So doing new things in front of people, like journaling or just anything you want to try out, normalises those things. And it's similar to the hairstyle thing I was talking about earlier. But when it comes to doing more hobby type things, the more you do them in front of someone, the more they just become your personality. And yeah, journaling was something I sort of put off because, I don't know, it felt weird having a physical journal. But I tried it out, and I mean, it turns out I didn't really like it, but I followed my curiosities, gave it a go, and yeah. And that takes us on to lesson number 4. And that is, I'm beginning to understand Alex Hormozi's thing of you need undeniable proof to to actually gain confidence. I feel like this year, or last year and this year, I've increased my confidence around social interactions more than any previous year combined. And if I'm being honest, up until last year, all I did to try and improve like my social skills was research stuff online. But through doing more in-person stuff last year and the start of this year, I do genuinely think I've increased my social skills. In other words, I feel like 1 hour of real world practice is greater than 10 hours of like solo online research. And the final lesson is I've realised that I'm not entirely a good person. And I know that sounds kind of bad, but let me explain. So I might put a picture up, but if you can imagine a sliding scale going from -10 to 0 in the middle and then a 10 on the other side. Just doing no bad things and avoiding wrongdoing, that gets you to a 0 on the scale. Okay, so not punching a guy in the face, that gets you to a 0. And then to get on the positive end of the scale, you need to engage in some helpful or kind actions. Now, I would say I do kind, selfless things every now and then, but if I'm being honest, the majority of the time I'm sitting at the 0 on the scale. And so just having the idea of this sliding scale has just been really helpful for understanding that avoiding negativity alone isn't enough to make you a good person. And yeah, it's just been a helpful concept. And there we have it. There's 5 lessons that I've learned recently. I might try and make this a yearly thing I do on the channel, but I guess we'll see. Before now, if you've maybe learned anything new recently, comment below. It'd be interesting to hear from anyone who watches this video. And yeah.